Welcome to Moving Panels. I'm Laramy Wells, and I want to take a moment to explain why I started this podcast and what you'll expect from the show. Consider this the origin story. First, the name. Why Moving Panels? Well, because movies were called moving pictures, and in comic books, the individual pictures are called panels. So a podcast about movies based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books, Moving Panels. You see, I have always enjoyed movies and superheroes, from running around as a kid pretending to be Superman, to imagining I could fly or teleport, to having the opportunity to teach a film studies class to high school students. I have a deep passion for both of these mediums. In elementary school, I started reading comic books. One of the first comic books I read was Daredevil. It was a 2-issue story arc about an evil surgeon, and Spider-Man was involved. Well, even though it wasn't a huge storyline, and in fact the villain would never be used again, the writing captivated me. I was excited to turn to the next page, and after reading the first issue, I had to go out and find the next one when it came out, just so I could find out what happened next. Comics made me want to learn more about the characters, and I enjoyed them even though I wasn't reading that comic from issue number 1. I could still figure out what was going on, who the characters were, and what the overall story was. Becoming a movie buff started in high school. I became wrapped up in the storytelling of movies. The Shawshank Redemption was the first movie I remember that hooked my attention. I stumbled upon it on cable one night, and I got so wrapped up in the story I had to ask to stay up just a little longer. And once I found out it was based on a novella by Stephen King, I had to know if the novella was as good as the movie. Does the book make me want to turn to the next page as much as the movie held me to my seat? I also grew up watching reruns of Wonder Woman with Linda Carter, Adam West as Batman, The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. I remember waking up on Saturday mornings to watch the Super Friends, which I had so many of the toys, and the X-Men, which still has one of the greatest theme songs. Then there were the Superman and Batman movies. All of this intrigued me and entertained me as I watched the characters I read in the comics come to life on the screen. As the 2000s arrived, we got more and more comic book movies, and the kid inside me just lit up. And yes, there have been hits and there have been misses. But it's like finding out that Red in The Shawshank Redemption, played brilliantly by Morgan Freeman, was a red-headed Irishman in the novella. Or when you learn that Dorothy's ruby red shoes were actually silver in the book. But there's also those moments like seeing the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, something the book could only describe in so much detail. It is so different when you see it brought to life. You see, the biggest problem is that a movie is only a snapshot of a deeper and rich history of the story that it tells, especially from the comic books. Because with a novel, they're taking 200 to 300 pages and adapting it into a 2-hour movie, which means, yes, they will eliminate some things, they'll alter other things, but with a comic book, when they make a movie or television show, they are taking decades of monthly stories that have been altered and reimagined throughout the years, and they have to decide what to present on the screen and how to bring the characters and story to an audience who may not be familiar with the source material or know any of the history. So that's what I want to do with this podcast. I want to discuss these movies and television shows and explain where the characters and stories come from and how well they were represented on the screen. At the same time, I want to talk about whether or not the movie or show is even worth watching. Along for the ride will be some of my friends who will join me and talk about the movies and shows that they like and even some of the bad ones they enjoy. It's great to hear different perspectives and in some cases, varying opinions. So you'll get a movie and television show review, you'll get some comic book history, and hopefully be entertained along the way. Just like with a comic book, I hope you're eager to want more and keep listening, which is why I will end every episode by saying, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.